The roar of 20,000 fans vibrated through the concrete floor beneath my feet. I pressed my palm against the wall of the narrow service corridor, feeling the bass reverberate through my bones as I adjusted the lanyard around my neck. The laminated pass read, "Crew, all access" in bold red letters, the weight of it against my chest both foreign and empowering. First time backstage? A technician with tattoo-covered arms smiled as he passed, carrying a coiled bundle of cables. I nodded, returning a tight smile. Just trying to find my bearings. What I didn't tell him was that I wasn't supposed to be here at all. That the lanyard around my neck belonged to my college roommate Maya, who worked sound for the tour. That I had called her in tears yesterday, begging for a favor after discovering a text message that had shattered my world. That right now my husband Derek thought I was at home nursing a migraine while he enjoyed the show, with his ex-girlfriend in a private VIP box that cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. The same VIP box I was now determined to find. I checked the venue map on my phone one more time, orienting myself. Maya had explained that the VIP boxes were accessible through the north stairwell, then down a carpeted hallway marked Premium Experience. I took a deep breath and started walking, trying to look like I belonged, while the concert's opening act finished their final song to thunderous applause. The main corridor split ahead. Left would take me toward the stage where the headliner, global superstar Eliza Cole, would soon appear. Right would lead me to the VIP section where Derek and his ex-girlfriend Vanessa were likely sipping champagne, sharing inside jokes and whatever else they had been doing behind my back. I turned right, my heart hammering against my ribs. With each step, I felt the wedding ring on my finger grow heavier, like a shackle instead of a promise. The image that had been tormenting me for 24 hours flashed in my mind again. Derek's phone left carelessly on our kitchen counter while he showered. The notification that appeared. Vanessa, can't wait for tomorrow night. Like old times. And now, here I was, about to discover exactly what like old times meant. 6 years ago, I had fallen in love with Derek Mercer's laugh before I'd even seen his face. I had been working late at the university library, hidden behind a towering stack of textbooks for my master's thesis research. When I'd heard it, a warm, genuine laugh that seemed to brighten the dimly lit study area. I peeked around my fortress of academic journals to see a dark-haired man gesturing animatedly to a friend, his eyes crinkling at the corners. When he caught me watching, instead of looking away, he smiled. 3 days later, we were having coffee. 3 months later, I was introducing him to my parents. And 3 years later, we were standing in a garden surrounded by floating lanterns as he slid a platinum band onto my finger and promised to love me forever. Excuse me. This area is restricted. A security guard stepped in front of me, snapping me back to the present. I fumbled with my borrowed lanyard. I'm with the production team. Need to check on the VIP sound levels. He eyed my credentials, then stepped aside with a nod. Boxes are through those double doors. I muttered a thanks and hurried forward, the plush carpet muffling my footsteps. The crowd roared again from the main arena, signaling the arrival of the headliner. Eliza Cole's opening notes to Midnight Confessions filtered through the walls as I reached the double doors. Derek and I had danced to this song in our kitchen just last week. His hands had been warm on my waist as he twirled me around, singing off-key into a wooden spoon. Loving you was never my confession, he'd crooned, dramatically dropping to one knee. It was always my loudest truth. I had laughed, pulling him back up to kiss him. You're ridiculous. Ridiculously in love, he'd responded. Where had that man gone? When had he started texting his ex-girlfriend behind my back? When had VIP concert boxes and secrets become part of our marriage? Marriage. The word felt hollow now. Our relationship had started showing cracks about 8 months ago, around the time Derek's architecture firm had taken on a major downtown renovation project. The late nights, the distracted conversations, the growing distance, I had attributed it all to work stress. It's just a tough project, he'd say whenever I tried to talk about it. Once we break ground, things will calm down. I had believed him, supported him, brought dinner to his office on nights when he couldn't make it home. I had been the understanding wife, never questioning when his phone would ding with messages at odd hours, never pushing when he grew distant, never imagining that the real reason might be that his heart was turning back towards someone else, someone he'd dated for nearly 5 years before me. Someone who shared his passion for architecture and understood his professional world in ways I never could. Someone whose family moved in the same wealthy circles as Derek's. Unlike my middle-class background that had always made me feel slightly out of place at his parents' country club, someone like Vanessa. I pushed open the double doors and stepped into a sleek hallway with numbered boxes along one side. Each had a small digital display showing the name of its occupants. I moved slowly, scanning each one. Box 5, the Hendersons box. 6, Clayton Industries box. 7, Merit Financial Group box. 8, Mercer. My stomach lurched. There it was. Derek had used his last name, not our last name, as if he wasn't attending as a married man. I stared at the display, my hands trembling. Behind that door was my husband and the woman he'd once planned to marry before they'd broken up just months before we met. The woman he was, apparently, reconnecting with while I worked extra shifts at the university to help pay for the house renovations. We'd been planning. I glanced down at my borrowed crew pass. It would get me backstage, but not into a private box. I needed a different approach. Just then, a venue attendant in a crisp black uniform appeared, carrying a tray of champagne flutes. Perfect timing. "Excuse me," I said, adopting my most professional tone. "I need to deliver a message to Box 8. It's regarding their meet and greet after the show." The attendant hesitated. "I can pass along a message when I deliver these." "It's time sensitive," I insisted. "Production manager needs confirmation now about their after-party access." "It'll just take a second." She studied my all-access pass, then nodded. "All right, but make it quick. We're strict about disturbing VIP guests during performances." She swiped a keycard against the door panel, and it unlocked with a soft click. 2 minutes, she warned before continuing down the hallway. I stood frozen before the door, my hand hovering over the handle. Through the wall, I could hear the muffled thump of the bass as Eliza Cole launched into her second song. My heart matched its rhythm, pounding painfully in my chest. Did I really want to see what was behind this door? Once I opened it, there would be no going back. No pretending. No more comfortable illusions about my marriage. But I needed to know. I deserved to know. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The VIP box was dimly lit, with plush leather seating arranged in tiers facing a floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked the stage. Eliza Cole was a vision in silver, her voice soaring through breaking chains as spectacular light effects cascaded across the arena. But I wasn't looking at the stage. My eyes were fixed on the back row of seating, where 2 silhouetted figures sat close together. One was unmistakably my husband, his profile illuminated by the stage lights whenever they flashed bright enough to reach the box. Beside him was a woman with sleek dark hair, leaning toward him as he spoke into her ear. I stepped fully into the box and let the door swing closed behind me with a soft click. Neither of them noticed me at first over the music. I stood still, partly hidden in the shadows, watching as Derek laughed at something Vanessa said, his hand casually resting on the back of her seat. It was a familiar gesture. Too familiar. I'd seen that same casual touch many times, at dinner parties, movie theaters, family gatherings. It was how Derek showed affection, how he maintained contact with someone he cared about. My throat tightened as I watched Vanessa place her hand on his knee, leaning closer to say something that made him smile wider than I'd seen him smile in months. Then, as if sensing my presence, Derek turned his head. Our eyes locked across the dim space, and I watched as recognition, confusion, and then alarm washed over his face. "Olivia?" His voice was barely audible over the music. He straightened abruptly, causing Vanessa to look up in confusion. I stepped forward, into the glow of the stage lights that periodically illuminated the box. "Don't let me interrupt," I said, my voice remarkably steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. "You two look cozy." Derek was on his feet now, moving toward me with his hands raised like he was approaching a frightened animal. "What are you doing here? I thought you weren't feeling well." "Clearly, I'm feeling better," I replied, my gaze shifting to Vanessa, who was watching with wide eyes. "Though I'm not sure I can say the same for our marriage." Vanessa stood now too, smoothing her designer dress. She was exactly as I remembered from the few photos Derek had kept, tall and elegant, with sharp cheekbones and the kind of confidence that came from old money and expensive education. "Olivia," she said, her voice cool and controlled. "This isn't what it looks like." I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. "That's the most cliché line in the history of affairs, Vanessa. I expected something more original from an award-winning interior designer." Derek stepped between us. "There's no affair. Vanessa and I ran into each other at the Harrington project meeting last month. Her firm is handling the interior design. We're colleagues, nothing more. Colleagues who text about secret concert plans?" I pulled out my phone and held up the screenshot I'd taken of their exchange. "Colleagues who reminisce about old times with kiss emojis?" Derek's face paled. Below us, Eliza Cole's voice reached a powerful crescendo, singing about betrayal and broken trust with such perfect timing it would have been comical in any other situation. "You went through my phone?" Derek asked, his voice tight. "I didn't have to. You left it on the counter, unlocked, while you showered. The notification was right there, Derek, along with the fact that you lied about working late tonight." Vanessa stepped forward. "I should give you two some privacy." "No," I said sharply. "Stay. I'd like to understand exactly what's happening here. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my husband is rekindling something with his ex while I've been working extra shifts to save for our house renovations." Derek ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd always found endearing. "Now it just made me angry." "The tickets were through Vanessa's firm," he explained. "They're a client perk. I was going to bring you, but you said you had a migraine, and it seemed like a good opportunity to discuss the Harrington project outside the office." "In a romantic VIP box? With champagne?" I gestured to the ice bucket and half-empty glasses on the small table beside their seats. "Try again, Derek. We're working together, Olivia," Vanessa interjected. "That's all." "Yes, we dated years ago, but that's ancient history." "Then explain the text," I demanded. "Like old times doesn't sound like a professional comment about a work project." A flash of something, guilt perhaps, crossed Derek's face. "We were reminiscing about concerts we used to attend." "It was harmless, was it?" I stepped closer to him. "Because you've been distant for months. You're never home. When you are, you're distracted or on your phone. And now I find you here with her, looking happier than you've looked with me in, God, I don't even know how long." The music suddenly stopped as Eliza Cole finished her song. In the momentary silence before the crowd's roar, Derek spoke. "I haven't been happy, Olivia. Not for a while." The words hit me like a physical blow. Around us, 20,000 people erupted in applause, but all I could hear was the sound of my world collapsing. "And you couldn't talk to me about that?" I asked, my voice breaking. "You had to go behind my back to her?" "I tried talking to you." Derek's composure finally cracked. "I tried for months, but you're always busy with your research or your students or your family emergencies. When was the last time we had a real conversation that wasn't about bills or house repairs or your sister's problems?" His words stung because there was truth in them. I had been busy, stretched thin between my teaching position, my research, and helping my sister through her divorce. But I had been doing it all for us, for our future. "That's not fair," I said. "I've been working hard because we agreed on certain goals. The house, the future sabbatical, starting a family in a few years. Those were our dreams, Derek. Were they?" He looked at me with unexpected sadness. "Or were they just plans we made because that's what was expected? Have you ever noticed how we never really talk about what we want anymore? Just what we should do next?" Vanessa cleared her throat. "I really should go." "Yes, you should," I agreed coldly, but Derek surprised me by saying, "No, stay." "Olivia deserves the whole truth." He turned back to me. "Vanessa and I have been talking about more than just the Harrington project. She helped me realize some things about myself, about what I want. And what exactly is it that you want, Derek? The question came out as a whisper. He looked between Vanessa and me, and in that moment, I knew. The realization was like ice water in my veins. You're leaving me, I stated. The arena lights suddenly dimmed as Eliza Cole began her most famous ballad, Halfway Gone. The irony wasn't lost on me. Derek stepped toward me, his expression pained. I don't know what I want yet, but I know something isn't right between us. Hasn't been for a while. And this is how you decided to handle it? My voice rose. Secret meetings with your ex instead of couples therapy or an honest conversation with your wife? It's not like that, Vanessa started. It's exactly like that. I cut her off. You two reconnected, started confiding in each other, created your own little bubble while I was left in the dark, thinking my husband was just stressed about work. The hurt was transforming into rage now, hot and clarifying. I turned back to Derek. How long? What? How long have you been meeting with her? Talking to her? Lying to me? Derek hesitated. We reconnected about 2 months ago. But Olivia, I swear nothing physical has happened. As if that makes it better. I laughed bitterly. You've been having an emotional affair, Derek. You've been giving her parts of yourself that should have been for us to work through together. Vanessa took a step back. This isn't what I wanted. I didn't set out to come between you two. And yet here you are, I replied. In a VIP box with my husband while I was supposed to be at home, oblivious. Derek reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Liv, please. I never meant to hurt you. I've just been trying to figure things out. Figure things out? I repeated incredulously. Is that what we're calling betrayal these days? The music swelled around us as Eliza Cole hit the emotional peak of her ballad. The lights from the stage washed over Derek's face, highlighting the conflict in his eyes. For a moment, I saw the man I had fallen in love with, vulnerable, honest, struggling. But then I remembered the deception, the secret texts, the distance that had grown between us while he turned to someone else. I want a divorce, I said, the words leaving my mouth before I'd even processed the thought. Derek's face crumpled. Olivia, don't. Let's talk about this. We can work through it. Like you've been trying to work through it with her? I gestured toward Vanessa. No thanks. I deserve better than being your backup plan while you figure out if you want to be with your ex again. That's not what this is, he insisted. Then what is it, Derek? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're halfway out the door already. Below us, 20,000 fans held up their phone lights for Eliza's ballad, creating a sea of stars in the darkness. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like I was drowning in a vast ocean, watching the surface grow more distant with each passing second. I think, I said quietly, that I need to leave before I say something I can't take back. I turned toward the door, then stopped. Actually, no. You two should leave. Enjoy the rest of the concert somewhere else. I'm staying. Olivia, Derek started. I mean it, Derek. Get out. Both of you. My voice was steel now, forged in the heat of betrayal. Maya got me this pass, and I intend to watch the rest of the show from this box that you paid for with our joint account. Consider it the first asset in our divorce settlement. Vanessa touched Derek's arm lightly. Come on, let's go. The casual familiarity of that touch was the final straw. As they moved toward the door, I felt something inside me break completely. The future I had planned, the life I had built with this man, all of it crumbled around me like a sandcastle hit by a wave. They paused at the door, Derek turning back to look at me one last time. I never wanted it to be like this, he said. I still love you, Liv. I met his gaze steadily. Not enough, apparently. And then they were gone, leaving me alone in the VIP box as Eliza Cole sang about a love that was halfway gone but could still be saved. Too late for that, I thought as the first tears finally began to fall. 3 days later, I stood in our kitchen, the kitchen we had renovated together last year, picking out every tile and fixture as a team, packing the last of my essential belongings into a cardboard box. After the concert, I'd spent the night at Maya's apartment, crying until there were no tears left. The next morning, I'd called in sick to work, something I never did, and gone to see a divorce lawyer. By that afternoon, I'd secured a short-term rental and started the process of disentangling my life from Derek's. He had called 17 times and sent 29 text messages, ranging from apologetic to desperate to angry to resigned. I had responded to exactly one, informing him I would be coming by the house to collect some things while he was at work. Or at least, that had been the plan. I heard his key in the front door just as I was sealing the last box. Freezing in place, I listened to his familiar footsteps in the entryway, the soft thud of his messenger bag hitting the bench, the jingle of keys being tossed into the ceramic bowl I had made in a pottery class last year. Olivia? His voice carried through the house, a mixture of surprise and relief. I didn't answer, but I didn't flee either. Instead, I straightened my shoulders and waited as he made his way to the kitchen. Derek appeared in the doorway, looking worse than I'd expected. His usually neat hair was disheveled, dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his normally crisp work clothes were wrinkled. For a brief, vindictive moment, I was glad he was suffering too. "You're here," he said unnecessarily. "I'm leaving," I replied, gesturing to the boxes. "I thought you'd be at work." "I've been taking some personal days." He moved further into the kitchen but maintained his distance. "Where have you been staying?" "That's not your concern anymore." He flinched at that but nodded. "I deserve that. You deserve a lot worse." I closed the final box with more force than necessary. "Why are you here, Derek?" "I specifically timed this to avoid seeing you." "I know," he admitted, "but I've been watching the security camera. I needed to talk to you." The fact that he had been monitoring our home security system to catch me made my skin crawl. "There's nothing to say." "There's everything to say." He stepped forward, stopping when I instinctively backed away. "Liv, please. What you saw at the concert, it wasn't what you think." "What I think," I said coldly, "is that you've been lying to me for months while reconnecting with your ex-girlfriend. What I think is that you've been confiding in her instead of working on our marriage. What I think is that you're a coward who couldn't be honest about wanting out. That's not—" He stopped, reconsidering. "Okay, yes. I've been confused, uncertain, but I never meant for any of this to happen. Things like this don't just happen, Derek. You made choices. Choices that excluded me and included her." He ran a hand through his hair. "You're right, I did. And I can't defend that. But what I told you at the concert was true too. We haven't been connecting for a long time. You've been so focused on your career, your research, your family. Don't you dare blame this on me," I snapped. "Yes, I've been busy. Yes, I've had obligations. That's called being an adult. But I always made time for you when you needed me. I always tried to check in, to stay connected. Did you?" Derek's voice rose slightly. "Because from my perspective, we've been living parallel lives for months. When was the last time we had a real conversation that wasn't about schedules or bills or house projects?" The question echoed what he'd said at the concert, and it stung because there was a kernel of truth to it. We had been busy, caught up in the machinery of our daily lives, but that wasn't an excuse for what he'd done. "If you felt that way," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady, "you should have talked to me about it, not to her. I tried." Frustration colored his tone. "But every time I brought up anything deeper, you had a paper to grade or a deadline to meet, or your sister called with another crisis." I gripped the edge of the kitchen island, anchoring myself. "So instead of trying harder or suggesting therapy or simply saying, 'Olivia, I need you to make time for this serious conversation,' you turned to your ex." "It wasn't like I planned it." He sighed, deflating slightly. "We ran into each other at a client meeting. She asked about the Harrington project. We got coffee to discuss some ideas. It was professional at first. And then, it was easy to talk to her." He looked down, shame evident in his posture. "She asked questions about my life, my goals, things I hadn't thought about in years. And I realized I couldn't remember the last time you and I had talked about anything beyond the immediate future." The admission hurt more than I expected. Not because he was wrong, but because I recognized the pattern he was describing. We had become so focused on building our life that we'd forgotten to live it. Still, that didn't excuse his actions. So you started confiding in her instead, I said flatly. Yes. At least he had the decency not to deny it. We started texting, meeting for lunch occasionally. Nothing physical happened, Olivia. I swear to you, as if that makes it better. You gave her your thoughts, your fears, your attention, all things that should have been shared with me. You created an intimacy with her while pulling away from me. I know. His voice was barely audible. And seeing your face when you walked into that box, I've never hated myself more. I laughed bitterly. Good. You should hate yourself. I certainly do right now. He winced but didn't argue. Instead, he moved to the kitchen table and pulled out a chair. Can we sit, please? Just for a few minutes. I wanted to refuse, to maintain the righteous anger that had been propelling me forward for the past 3 days. But beneath the anger was exhaustion, a bone-deep weariness that made even standing feel like too much effort. I nodded curtly and took the chair furthest from him, keeping the table between us like a shield. I told Vanessa I can't see her anymore, Derek said once we were seated. Not professionally, not personally. I've requested to be removed from the Harrington project. Am I supposed to be impressed by that? I crossed my arms. You're doing the bare minimum of what a faithful husband should have done in the first place. No, he admitted. I don't expect you to be impressed or even believe me right now. I needed you to know. Why? So you can feel better about yourself? Because I love you, he said simply. Because despite my confusion and my poor choices, I never stopped loving you. And I don't want our marriage to end. The words should have moved me. 3 days ago, they might have. But now they just felt like another manipulation. Another way for him to avoid the consequences of his actions. Love isn't enough, Derek. Trust is essential, too. And you've shattered that completely. I know. He leaned forward, his eyes pleading. But trust can be rebuilt. With time, with therapy, with honest communication. Stop. I held up a hand. Just stop. I came here to get my things, not to listen to your sales pitch for reconciliation. It's not a sales pitch. Liv, it's me fighting for our marriage. You should have fought for it before you started sneaking around with Vanessa, I retorted. Before you lied to my face and made me feel crazy for noticing the distance between us. He had no response to that, and we sat in heavy silence for a moment. Outside, a lawnmower droned in the distance. Inside, the refrigerator hummed, the new energy-efficient one we had purchased together just 6 months ago, planning for a future that now lay in ruins. I have a question, I finally said. And I need you to be completely honest. Derek nodded, wary but attentive. If I hadn't shown up at that concert, if I hadn't seen that text, how far would this have gone? Would you have eventually slept with her? Would you have left me? Or would you have just continued this double life indefinitely? He closed his eyes briefly, as if the question physically pained him. When he opened them, there was a resignation in his gaze that told me I wouldn't like the answer. I don't know, he admitted, and that's the honest truth. I was adrift, confused. Part of me was nostalgic for the simplicity of my relationship with Vanessa. Part of me was terrified of hurting you. And part of me was angry that our marriage had become so routine. Routine, I repeated. Is that how you see what we built? A routine? No, not all of it. But some days, yes. His honesty was brutal now. Some days I'd wake up and wonder if this was all there was. Mortgage payments and career advancement and vacation planning. And then I'd feel guilty for wanting more when we had so much. And Vanessa offered an escape from that routine, I surmised. She represented a road not taken, he corrected. A version of my life that didn't have the responsibilities and compromises of this one. I nodded slowly, understanding dawning with painful clarity. You're having a midlife crisis, Derek. Except instead of buying a sports car, you decided to emotionally cheat on your wife. He laughed mirthlessly. Maybe, but it feels more complicated than that from the inside. I'm sure it does. I stood up, suddenly exhausted by the conversation. But that's for you to figure out, preferably with a therapist, not another woman. I have a life to rebuild. Olivia, please. He stood too, desperation creeping into his voice. Don't walk away. We can fix this. I can fix this. That's just it, Derek. I turned to face him fully. I don't think you can. And more importantly, I'm not sure I want you to. What does that mean? It means that even if we could somehow piece back together what we had, I'd always be wondering. Always checking your phone when you weren't looking. Always worrying when you worked late. That's no way to live. We could build something new, he suggested. Something stronger, more honest. Maybe, I conceded. But I need time and space to decide if that's what I want. And right now, all I want is to get my things and leave. He nodded reluctantly, accepting defeat for the moment. Where will you go? I've rented a place, I said vaguely. Short term until I figure things out. And us? What happens now? I picked up the last box, holding it between us like armor. Now I leave. Now you live with the choices you've made. Now we both decide what we really want. Derek stepped forward, his hand outstretched as if to touch my arm, but he stopped himself. And if I know what I want? If it's you, us, our marriage? I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time since entering the kitchen. Beyond the disheveled appearance and the evident distress, I saw the man I had loved for 6 years. The man who had made me laugh until I cried, who had held me through my father's illness, who had built a life alongside me step by careful step. That man was still there, somewhere beneath the betrayal and confusion, but I also saw something else, a fundamental weakness I had never noticed before. A willingness to take the easy path rather than the hard conversation. A readiness to blame circumstances rather than accept responsibility. If you want our marriage, I said carefully, then prove it. Not with words or grand gestures, but with consistent action over time. Go to therapy for yourself, not for us. Figure out why you did this, really, and give me the space I'm asking for. Hope flickered in his eyes. And then, we'll see. I shifted the box in my arms. That's all I can offer right now. He nodded, accepting this small concession. I'll help you carry these to your car. No. My response was immediate and firm. I can manage. As I walked past him toward the front door, he spoke again, his voice thick with emotion. I'm sorry. Olivia. Truly. I know that doesn't fix anything. But I need you to know that I understand what I've done. And I'll regret it every day. I paused in the doorway, not turning back. Good. You should. Then I walked through our home one last time, past the photos of happier days, past the furniture we had chosen together, past the life we had built, and out into the uncertainty of a future I had never planned for. 6 months later, the gallery buzzed with conversation and the soft clink of champagne glasses. My first photography exhibition, Fractured Light, Studies in Perspective, had drawn a larger crowd than I'd anticipated, and the small space was pleasantly crowded with academics, artists, and curious locals. I moved through the room, stopping occasionally to discuss a particular piece or accept a congratulation, but my eyes kept drifting to the gallery entrance. Part of me was waiting. Part of me was dreading. Stunning work, said a woman I recognized as the Dean of Fine Arts. The juxtaposition of broken objects with new growth is particularly moving. Thank you, I replied, genuinely pleased by her recognition. I've found that sometimes beauty emerges most clearly through damage. Indeed, she nodded appreciatively. Will you be teaching next semester as well as pursuing your art? Yes. I've accepted a tenure-track position in the visual arts department. Excellent news, she said warmly before being pulled away by another guest. I took a moment to survey the room, pride swelling in my chest. 6 months ago, I had been lost, shattered by betrayal and uncertainty. Today, I stood amid tangible proof of my resilience and growth. After leaving Derek, I had thrown myself into my photography, a passion I had set aside years ago in favor of more practical pursuits. What had begun as therapy, a way to channel my grief and anger, had evolved into a new career path. My series on broken objects illuminated by different sources of light had caught the attention of a local gallery owner, which had led to this exhibition and the teaching offer. My sister appeared at my elbow, offering a fresh glass of champagne. "You're a hit, Liv," she said proudly. "3 pieces sold already, and that couple over there is debating the large centerpiece. Thanks for being here, Mia." I squeezed her hand gratefully. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Sure you could have," she countered. "But I'm glad I got to help. After everything you did for me during my divorce," she trailed off, then smiled. "It's good to see you thriving." I nodded, taking a sip of champagne. My gaze drifted again to the door, and this time, he was there. Derek stood hesitantly at the entrance, looking more like himself than he had the last time I'd seen him. His hair was neatly trimmed, his suit well-fitted. He carried a small gift bag and wore an expression of nervous determination. "He came," Mia observed, following my gaze. "Are you okay with that?" "I can run interference if you want." "No," I decided. "It's fine. I invited him after all." Over the past 6 months, Derek and I had maintained limited contact. He had respected my request for space, communicating primarily through emails and the occasional text. He had enrolled in therapy, both individual and a support group for people working through relationship issues. Our divorce proceedings had been paused at my request, though neither of us had definitively moved toward reconciliation either. We existed in a state of limbo, no longer truly married, but not legally separated. Not together, but not entirely apart. It was uncomfortable and uncertain, but it had given me time to heal and reflect. "I'll be nearby if you need me," Mia promised, squeezing my arm before disappearing into the crowd. I watched as Derek made his way through the gallery, stopping to view each photograph with genuine interest. He had always supported my creative pursuits, even when they took a back seat to more practical concerns. That, at least, had been real. He noticed me watching and offered a tentative smile. I nodded slightly, granting permission to approach. "Congratulations, Liv," he said as he reached me, his voice warm but careful. "These are extraordinary. Thank you for coming," I replied. "I wasn't sure you would. I wouldn't have missed it." He glanced around the crowded space. "You've created something remarkable here." There was an awkward pause, both of us uncertain of the boundaries in this new territory. "How are you?" I asked finally. "Better," he answered honestly. "The therapy has been challenging but helpful, and the firm put me on a different project, smaller scale, more creative freedom. It's been good for me." I nodded, genuinely glad to hear it. "And Vanessa?" The name no longer caused the sharp pain it once had. "I haven't seen or spoken to her since that night," he said firmly. "That's completely over, whatever it was." Another silence fell between us, filled with unspoken questions and uncertainties. "I have something for you," Derek said eventually, offering the small gift bag. "A congratulations present. You don't have to open it now." I accepted it with a small smile. "Thank you." "Olivia," he began hesitantly. "I know this isn't the time or place, but I've been thinking a lot about what you said the last time we really talked, about proving things through consistent action rather than words or gestures." "I remember," I acknowledged. "I've been trying to do that. Not just for you, or even for us, but for myself. To understand why I made the choices I did, and to be better regardless of what happens between us." There was a sincerity in his eyes that I hadn't seen in a long time, perhaps had never truly seen. The past months had changed him, just as they had changed me. "I appreciate that," I said. "I've been doing similar work," he nodded, a flash of hope crossing his face. "Your photographs tell that story beautifully, especially this one." He gestured to a piece nearby, a shattered mirror reassembled with gold filling the cracks, reflecting fractured light in unexpected patterns. "Kintsugi," I explained. "The Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold. The idea is that the object becomes more beautiful for having been broken." "Is that how you feel?" Derek asked quietly. "More beautiful for having been broken?" I considered the question carefully. Stronger, certainly. More authentic. More connected to what I truly want. I met his gaze directly. Breaking apart forced me to reassemble myself with intention rather than convenience. "And us?" he ventured. Is there any gold that could fill those cracks? It was the question I had been asking myself for months. The question I still didn't have a complete answer to. I don't know, I admitted. Some damage can't be undone, but I'm starting to believe that maybe something new could be built from the pieces. Something honest and clear-eyed, without the illusions we both maintained. Hope brightened his expression. I'd like that chance, Olivia. To build something new with you. Not because it's comfortable or expected, but because I choose it every day. It wouldn't be easy, I cautioned. We'd have to start from scratch in many ways. Complete transparency. No assumptions. No falling back into old patterns. I know, he agreed. And I'm ready for that work, if you decide you want it too. The gallery owner approached, apologizing for the interruption. Olivia, the buyers for Refracted Truth, would like to meet you. Do you have a moment? Of course, I smiled, then turned back to Derek. I need to do this, but maybe we could talk more later? After the exhibition? I'd like that, he said, relief evident in his voice. I'll be here until the end. As I moved away to meet the buyers, I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. 6 months ago, I had stumbled upon my husband and his ex in a VIP box, a discovery that had shattered the life I thought I knew. The pain had been overwhelming, the betrayal complete. But standing in this gallery surrounded by my work, art that had emerged directly from that brokenness, I understood something profound. Sometimes we need to be broken open to discover what truly matters. Sometimes the light can only enter through the cracks. I didn't know if Derek and I would find our way back to each other. I didn't know if the new relationship we might build would be stronger than what we had before. But for the first time since that night at the concert, I was open to the possibility. The gift bag he had given me sat on a nearby table. Later, I would open it to find a small, exquisite sculpture of 2 trees grown together, their branches intertwined but their roots separate and strong. Attached was a simple note, to growing alongside each other rather than into each other. Whatever you decide, I am grateful for the light you've brought into my life. For now, though I moved through the gallery with newfound confidence, my broken pieces reassembled with gold, catching and reflecting the light in ways I never could have imagined before everything fell apart. Sometimes, I thought as I greeted the buyers, the most beautiful view comes after the fall, and whatever happened next, I would face it with my eyes open, no longer backstage in my own life, but center stage, illuminated, seen, and finally completely present.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.